Awesome. So welcome everyone to the next webinar in our installment. Today, we are going to be talking to you about how to build a relationship with buyers and create the perfect pitch. So we're excited to be sharing this with you today. It's going to be myself and Sunshine Squires, who you guys are all familiar with if you have been attending any of our past webinars. And Sunshine and I both have experience as past buyers, and Sunshine most recently at NCG for about the last 7 or so years. So we're going to give you all the best insider tips and tricks to really build a successful retailer partnership and how to communicate with your buyers. So Sunshine, I want to start with the initial reach out. If you're communicating with a buyer for the first time, what do we do?
Sure. So I thought I'd put together an example of an initial email to a buyer, because what I want to show is how really easy it is to include a lot of information, a lot of pertinent information into this email. When I did this, I followed a checklist, and I think that's really important to do is to make sure that you've got everything in there. But in typical communication, you have the opportunity to sort of do an initial "Hi, it's me," and then maybe follow it up with some additional information. And you don't have that luxury with this. You really need to sort of pack everything that buyer needs to know about you to want to schedule a meeting with you into this email. So, like you would expect, the email leads with who you are, what your role is with the company, going into your elevator pitch about the brand and what your missions are. And then some more information about your products, any certifications, things like that. And then you'll want to be really specific about sort of what's the action that you're looking for. What's the ask? And so if this is a category review, you'll kind of want to identify the products that you want them to consider and how you think that they would fit with the set. I also think that this is like a really great time to sort of get in front of some questions that, if you don't address, might come up later. And I think that there's better empowerment in sort of starting that conversation by talking about, where you are with distribution, where you are with brokers, or how you plan to support sales if you get them.
Yeah, I think this is so great. And I want to say a couple things. One is that, we coach our clients also to follow a checklist, and we give them that checklist. And if anyone is interested here, you can reach out and we'll share that checklist with you as well. Just email Lisa at KateLaBrosse.com for that checklist. And then the couple other things that I want to kind of call out here is I love, you see a little screenshot of the signature there, Sunshine. And this is such an important thing. And talk to us about why you included product images in the signature.
Sure. So my thinking is a couple of things. Although I think you should attach a sell sheet, there's always opportunity that's not going to get opened, right? So any chance that you have to literally put your product in front of the buyer, you should seize, right? And I think that this is a great way of just sort of creating, again, some visual representation of stuff that you didn't necessarily get into detail, in the body of the email. So, here are the 3 SKUs that I really want you to look at. These are, our flagship SKUs. These are the certifications that we have that we think are going to be meaningful to this buyer. And then obviously links to social media. But the other thing is that my thinking about having this sort of all built into a single, communication is that when I was a buyer, oftentimes I was getting sort of these inquiries from brands, but it wasn't really the right time for me to be looking at it. It wasn't when I was doing that review. And so what I would do is typically say, hey, thanks for reaching out. I'll get back to you in June, when I'm really kind of diving into the data around that category. And I have like a better way of sort of contextualizing your ask, right? And in order to sort of manage all of these inquiries coming in, it was really important for me to be able to just grab that email and drop it into a folder for that month and be able to put my fingers on it, when I got to that date easily, rather than fishing around in multiple emails to get what I need.
So don't freak out, right? If you don't hear from a buyer for a couple months, they just might not be looking at your category at that moment that you send it. And know that when they get to that category, they might fish that back out. But I'm thinking, Sunshine, that there's potentially a couple other options to use this initial email checklist. If you sent something like this already, and now it's been 3 to 6 months and you've heard nothing, you would probably still send something like this, right? Like, again.
Absolutely. It kind of kills me when a second email goes out, and now not only is it not attached to this thread, but it no longer contains any of the review information. It's making the assumption that I remember everything that was included in the first communication.
That's so great. And the other point that's kind of coming up for me that I remember is, as a buyer, I would meet brands at a trade show or some other industry function or networking event, have a really good conversation with them about their brand. And then their email would be sort of like, hey, so great to meet you, and then assume, that I, again, have all this information and not include it. It's almost like they went too casual or too familiar.
Yeah.
Right? Does that happen?
Oh, for sure. And I get this idea of sort of, kind of building on what feels like, a familial relationship. But there's no harm in including too much information and like a lot to damage that could potentially be done by assuming that they're able to recall that conversation.
That's great. And there's some other ways we're going to talk about a little bit later about, other reasons you would engage with your buyer, other types of communication you would send. But obviously this initial communication really sets the foundation for the whole partnership. So it's a big deal. You need to spend some time with this.
Kate, I'm wondering, so you have a lot of experience on the broker side. And I think that like once folks like hire a national broker that's going to, sort of handle their key account calls, sometimes sort of these messages are then put in the hands of the broker. And I think that it would be important to sort of maintain or have some input to the broker about like how you want this communication to happen. You've got a new product, you want the buyer to consider it for the review. You've got this checklist about, remind them, maybe it's a new buyer. Like maybe you were already slotted in that retailer, but you haven't dealt with that buyer before. And like, you want to make sure that the broker is communicating the values of the company and the intersection, between the two companies.
Sunshine, I think that's such a great point. I'm really happy you brought that up. And it's true, right? When you hire a broker, typically they are going to manage most of the key account communication on your behalf. There's pros and cons to that. And I think that as much as you as the founder can continue to drive that, the more benefit you're going to see, right? And you can leverage the broker for the connections they have with the buyer, their understanding of that retailer and their programs, but you still want to make that a personal connection with that account, with that buyer. And so I love the idea that you still have a template that you give to your broker partners, right? And put it in third person. So the broker can send it like it's coming from them, right? But here's still all this information on the brand that you've outlined here. That's such a great practice and will really kind of set you up. And the thing with brokers, you guys, is it tends to be, their interactions with buyers tends to be very transactional. It's just the nature of the business. They got a lot of brands, a lot of products, and sometimes a lot of accounts that they're managing. And that broker and that buyer might just have a rhythm where they're just sending information back and forth, right? And this is the opportunity to kind of interrupt that a little bit and put a personal spin to it.
Totally.
Love it. Okay, so then let's talk about, you've sent that initial communication and you actually now have a buyer who wants to meet with you. So what do you do to prep for that meeting to make sure that it is a success and you're putting your best foot forward?
Sure. Well, I think, you're doing work every day, every week on behalf of your brand and, looking for your brand's growth. And I think that I can't think of like an hour better spent with, a better return on investment than in researching a retailer before going into a meeting. And it's shocking to me how often this doesn't happen. But I think the opportunity is that even if you're meeting with a retailer that you kind of think that you understand, it's really important to tap into what is their messaging currently today coming from the company. What are the initiatives that are important to them? How are they talking about their retailers? What consumers does it look like they're targeting? This is really an opportunity to talk about sort of the intersection again between your brand and what they're hoping to accomplish. If they're being very vocal about reducing plastic, and you have a plastic-free product, you're bringing an opportunity to that retailer to further their own mission. So crazy to not sort of kind of dig into that and show up informed about the brand.
Yeah, I think that sets you up for such a deeper level of success with that account. And it shows, it's the same thing when you show up to an interview for a job, right? You prep for that. You do your research on that company so that you can show up having a solid understanding of who they are and what their values are. Same thing here, no difference.
Yeah, and learn their language, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you can meet them where they're at and speak to the things that are important to them. Absolutely.
And then you can take that research and then kind of use it as a lens to look at your deck and understand where you need to make edits and adjustments. I was thinking about if you have a comparative chart in your deck and it's pulling in like a super commercial product, right? A mainstream product, and you're meeting with an ultra natural retailer, you'll kind of want to adjust that because it doesn't feel relevant to them. It doesn't make them feel like understood.
This really what you're saying by that, and kind of a lot of what we're talking about here, like there's some serious human psychology going into thinking about how we're structuring these meetings. And when it shows up, when you show up in a way that looks like you don't have an understanding of me as a buyer or us as a retailer, and you're putting things in your deck that aren't relevant to us, that creates a psychological disconnect from between us. Yeah,
I agree. They may also give you some information to review before the meeting, which is a blessing, right? If they've sent you program materials, take the time to familiarize yourself with them. Know what tools are available to you. Know what they mean when they say TPR. Gosh, every retailer means something different, right? When they refer to a TPR, so that you're speaking their language, and showing that you're prepared. Two other pieces of sort of preparation that I think are really important around like samples and sending the deck. So you want to make sure that you send samples so that they arrive to the buyer several days before the meeting, if you have any hopes of them getting a chance to try them. And also it's really great for them to, in these virtual meetings, for them to be able to have live product in their hands for the discussion.
Right. I think there's been some shifting around the sample kind of processes for retailers during COVID, right? So just make sure that you're double checking with them. A lot of buyers are having to receive samples at home, and some of them have kind of limited the number of samples that they want to get because now they have to house them at their house versus at their office. So just make sure that you're checking that before you're sending samples. And the one thing I'll say about this too is that you don't want to oversample, right? It was honestly a pet peeve of mine as a buyer when I would get, 2 or 3 cases of something. I don't need that, right? Like you can send a couple units. That's good.
That's true. And oftentimes retailers have sample policies that they'll provide you.
That's right.
And so, yeah, the other piece being the deck. You want to make sure that you send this about 2 business days before the meeting. I'm always surprised at like there are brands who sort of feel like that they're somehow like giving away the element of surprise, like that they want to spring the deck on, a buyer in the meeting. And it's really crazy to not take advantage of the opportunity for that buyer to have time with the deck before the meeting so that they can show up to the meeting ready to use your time together in the most efficient way.
Yeah, I think that that's such a great point. And I've heard you say this before, but don't send it 20 minutes beforehand and then be like, hey, did you have time to look at my deck? Right? Don't do that.
But they do, but don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Don't do that. You want to actually give them legitimate time to look at your deck beforehand.
Yeah. And then finally, like, we've all been at this virtual meeting thing for over a year now. But I'm still surprised at folks who show up with sort of a lack of concern and consideration for their space in the meeting. Especially if you're selling something, you are presenting your company's culture. So it's not necessarily about having, some like product banner behind you, but what is your space sort of communicating about the lifestyle associated with your brand?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And it's worth it, again, even if you're not going to kind of merchandise your space behind you, to just have a space that is neat and orderly, right? If you've got stuff all over the place and papers and boxes and this and that, like that communicates something. So be aware of what you're communicating with your visual representation.
Yeah. And basic things like lighting, don't be backlit,
Yes.
It's hard enough, doing this without, not being face to face with folks. It's important for them to be able to read your face.
Great.
And then of course, make sure that you are set up to use the meeting platform that's been selected and you've tested it out, and you're not going to run into any issues, because if you blow your meeting time, you might not get another opportunity.
Great point. Okay, so now we're prepping for the meeting, and obviously a big piece of that is going to be the deck. So I know we could talk all day just on the deck, but let's break it down for everyone, just kind of quickly. Let's talk through each of the pieces.
Yeah, well, the way I really like the way that this is sort of showing up in 3 pieces, because to me, this is like the perfect deck sandwich. So, your introductory slides, this is where you're going to really hook the buyer with your brand story, your own personal story as the founder, your mission, certifications, the attributes, again, that are going to resonate with the buying organization. This is also where you get into your products. I'm personally a fan of sort of leading with a glamour shot on the products, a group photo sort of showing the products in its natural setting on a kitchen counter, and showing, products that, meals that could be made with that product. And then to follow that up with this sort of more dialed in product slide that has the specs, the ingredients, and the SRP. From this point, once you sort of pitch the brand and the products, the meat of the deck, or what I believe the meat of the deck should be, is about the category. And I think that brands sometimes lose perspective on the fact that as buyers, we are not brand managers. We are not invested so much in brand success as we're responsible for category success. So it's very important for us that you come to the conversation with an understanding of what is happening in your category and how your product is going to drive category growth, how you're going to bring incremental sales to the category.
I think, Sunshine, this is probably one of the most important points we are going to make in this whole presentation, is to understand that obviously you as a brand, your job is to sell your brand, but you are talking to someone whose job it is to manage a category or manage categories and to sell more product and support their shoppers, right? So you have, in some ways, you could have totally differing goals here. And your job is to position, put your goals into a way that speaks to the buyer and meets their needs. That's your job here. And that's what Sunshine is talking about.
Yeah, and the way that you can build sort of this category story is to use data, and of course, there, for many emerging brands, purchasing spins is not yet in the cards, but there are a lot of other places to get your hands on compelling sort of category trends data. Spins publishes free reports. New Hope is constantly putting out really great category content that hits my inbox every day.
Mm-hmm.
You'll want to kind of get into the consumer insights, like who is your targeted consumer and how is this presenting a new opportunity for the retailer? What is the new consumer that you are going to bring to their shelves? And Nielsen and IRI are great for, providing that kind of information.
You can also do this, Sunshine, through kind of your own demographics that you have through your DTC business, through your social media engagement, and really show who's interacting with your brand on a regular basis.
For sure. I mean, you would be shocked at sometimes how small the sample sizes are in like official data.
That's right.
Yeah, you can conduct your own consumer research for sure. I'm a big fan of comparative charts because I think it's just a really clear visual way of saying, here are the brands that you have on shelf in this space. Here's my brand, and here are the points of differentiation. Here's what the different things that I am bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. And then I really like this slide here where the brand has kind of gone in and given a visual representation of what the product is going to look like at shelf. So after that, sort of this last line of slides here, this is the action. This is the sales. This is the marketing. This is like the strategy, right? So you kind of want to provide information around maybe what's happening in your social media. You'll want to talk about sort of the logistics, like what, are you working with distributors? What warehouses are open? What is your scalability? And then that kind of wraps into you got to close the deal, right? So coming prepared with like a full year promotional plan shows the buyer that you understand that like this is not just I get my product in there and then like the retailer takes it from there, that you have, that you've internalized that this is sort of a long-term relationship.
Right. And, we've kind of touched on this and we'll talk about a little bit kind of in the next slide where we talk about what happens in the meeting, but it's no fun to just be read to from a slide, right? Like that's not really fun for anyone. And so make sure that you have some talking points and you're not just reading directly from the slide. This is also the benefit of sending the presentation to the buyer ahead of time so that you can free up your time to be a bit more, transformational instead of transactional and really engage and build a relationship with that buyer.
I like that. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah. Okay, so now what do we do? Where I'm sitting in front of you, tell me what to do.
Okay, aside from being on time, right. Seriously. Yeah. Okay, so I want to encourage people to sort of think about this meeting in a different way. As a brand, you're thinking about this is my big opportunity, right? But I want you to keep in mind that actually this is the buyer's meeting. And so I think it's important at the beginning of the meeting to frame things up in a consensual way with the buyer and sort of check in about how they want that meeting to go. So you may say like, okay, I see we have 30 minutes scheduled. Can we take like 15 minutes and I can take you through the deck and answer any questions that have come up. And then hopefully that'll leave us time to sort of, dig into like next steps, right?
Yeah. I think that's great. And I know Aaron on our team, he loves to start his meetings with, what questions are there any questions or any needs right off the bat that you kind of want to address before we jump into the meat of the meeting? That's another good way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that oftentimes folks come in the mindset of like, I'm here to do my presentation.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you have a buyer who's showing up engaged and is like, actually, I already looked over the deck and these are the questions that have come up with me. And like, that's kind of where I want to take this conversation right now. That's amazing. That means that they're super interested in you. If they don't do that, it doesn't mean that they're not interested in you, but you know, being able to sort of like work with the dynamics that are in front of you is really important.
Great.
Other like things that I think is very important is obviously remembering to bring your personality and your passion to the conversation. You know, nerves aside, you know, people coming out of the meeting are really going to remember you if you know you brought your personality.
Well, and people remember how you made them feel, right? Like that at the end of the day, that's really what connects us, right? And what we connect to the memory of meeting with someone. And so bring your authenticity, bring your energy. It's very important.
Yeah. Some logistical stuff that I would recommend is, you know, take responsibility for being the timekeeper. You know, make sure that in your mind, you're allowing enough time to get to really wrap up the conversation and don't leave the conversation sort of hanging. And also know, like, if things start to go over, don't assume that that's okay. And that the buyer is just going to like let you know when it's not okay. It shows, you know, professionalism and consideration to check it and say, hey, I see we've only got 5 minutes left. Do you know, how's your schedule?
Great.
In the conversation, the buyer could be dropping some really like valuable nuggets of information and wisdom about what's happening in the category. You know, some ideas about what they think you could be doing to be successful with them. If you have any doubts about your ability to sort of stay present and be able to multitask and capture that information, I would encourage you to invite someone from your organization to join in the meeting and in the role of a note taker, because that's going to be really important for your follow-up.
Yeah, and especially in this virtual world, if you're not able to do that, you could also just record it on your phone and go back and listen to notes that way. Yeah, just don't put that out there anywhere. That buyer isn't going to want to see their communication out in a public way.
Yeah, and again, I can't reiterate this enough. Don't forget to close the deal. Right? You've done your presentation. You're answered a couple of questions. You're sitting across from each other. You got to ask for the sale.
Great. Okay, so what do we do after the meeting? Give us our follow-up.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to send a meeting recap by the end of the day. This is really important to me because as a buyer, it's showing me, what did you hear in that meeting? It's a chance for me to catch if there are any misunderstandings and that you really clearly understand what I'm looking for you in next steps. If I've given you some things that I'm looking for, some things to complete, please don't piecemeal that back to me. Don't send me an email as you complete each task. That's too much communication. It's too much information. Grab it at one time and send it to me, which kind of also leads into the idea of paying attention to the preferred communication standards with your buyer. It won't be the same from buyer to buyer, and this is the nuance of the relationships in business. If they're someone who is more formal in their language, you should probably match that and not take things too casual. Certainly not exclusive to buyer communication, but I'll take the opportunity to say that reply all is a really bad practice. I think we've all have had experiences where things have ended up in our inbox that were probably not intended for our eyes. And taking the extra 2 minutes to grab information and construct an autonomous email is an indication of professionalism. And then finally, on the sample front, again, this is something that will probably be communicated to you clearly by the buyer, but oftentimes after that initial sample set, there might be a protocol where other stakeholders need to receive samples before final decisions are made.
Okay, great. So we're getting kind of close to wrap up. We just have a few more things to go over with you. So Sunshine, just kind of give us, this checklist of these things that you talked about that we really should consider here.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, being concise and intentional in your communication. Obviously being professional by being prompt, and maintaining a clear communication contact. If things are sort of switching around on the back end, do not let that reflect to your buyer. Don't start switching out points of contact.
So great. And then we've outlined a couple additional reasons that you would reach out to your buyers. So let's just go through these kind of quickly, Sunshine.
Sure. And I just want to say that it really is important to sort of maintain contact with your buyer, but doing that by just saying like, hey, how's it going? Is it's not a good use of that communication. So there are some better opportunities to touch base. So events like there's an upcoming promotion, you want to ensure that promotion is set up, that things are looking good the way that you expected, and everything's good to go.
Yeah, I think when it comes to this too, one of the things you can ask in this when you're preparing for a promotion is, does that retailer provide any information after the promotion is over? Any data to you? Do they make anything available? Or, do they have any kind of process for reviewing the performance of that promotion?
Yeah. Yeah, because post-promotion is really a great time to reach out. Obviously, don't reach out the day after the promotion ends. Give whether that retailer is using spins or they're using their own internal data. There's obviously, a lag time in sort of processing. But if you have seen some sort of reporting around the promotional performance and you have questions, this is a great chance to reach back and sort of frame those questions like, is this ROI typical for this category for you? Do you have some suggestions about which variable we might, change to see a better performance? Did we not reach the right retail? Are there some other sort of levers to pull with you? Should we look at doing an off shelf next time? Just because you've submitted a promotional plan for the year doesn't mean that you don't want to go back and sort of tweak and enhance that.
Great. And then I know we've got one more idea here for when else you would reach out.
Yeah, always be the bearer of your own good news, right? The idea is that this is a partnership. And so I think that these buyers would like to think that they're sort of in your inner circle. And so if there's something exciting and new, like you're launching a new product, you're under new ownership, you've just, finished a new round of fundraising, it's so much better for them to hear it directly from you than read it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love this so much. And it's important, for the retailers that really invest in you from the beginning and help you build your brand, that you continue to communicate with them in this way. And it doesn't just become about communicating with Target or Walmart or Whole Foods or something, right? But that, you do this, continue to do this with the retailers that help build you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple, few key takeaways here, guys. We're at the end of the presentation. So what we heard Sunshine say very clearly is email etiquette is key. So how you're communicating is huge. How often you want to prepare your materials, your pitch, your understanding of the account and your samples and your space. Have a master presentation template that you customize for each account. This is going to save you guys a lot of time, and you can continue to build on that and add in different slides that now you'll just sort of piecemeal, right? When it's time to go to an account, now you're just plugging and playing. Bring your authenticity and your energy. We said that really clearly. It's important. Ask for the sale. You heard Sunshine say that several times, but ask for the sale and then do the follow-up to make sure that you get it. And then don't email the buyer if you don't have big news or a specific request or actionable follow-up, right? So there's that balance between keeping that relationship going, creating that level of partnership, and wanting to just sort of chit chat. So that's what we want to avoid. So hopefully this was beneficial for you guys today. Sunshine, your expertise is so appreciated. How lucky are we to have a buyer with all of this insider information? So thank you for sharing all of this with us today. And as I said at the beginning, if you guys are interested in the checklist for that initial email outreach, go ahead and email Lisa. You can see her contact information right there. Email her and we will get that out to you. Thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate you being here with us.
Awesome. Thank you.